He was 72, and the steering wheel felt like old bark under his palms. Albert "Albie" McCrae, a widower from the Central West, left the sheep yards at 5:12 a.m., a battered thermos rattling in the cup holder and a sun-bleached Akubra on the seat beside him. The date was October 12th, spring already biting, wattle thick along the fence lines. He hadn't been invited to his daughter's wedding in Sydney. He went anyway. The highway unspooled past Bathurst and the Blue Mountains, where Banksias leaned into wind and the sky looked scrubbed clean. He checked his wind-up watch, 8:45, and touched the opal brooch pinned to his breast pocket, the one that had been his late wife's. He thought of the last phone call with Ella, her voice flat, "You're not welcome." His jaw tightened, an unconscious clench he couldn't smooth out. He pressed on. By the time he hit Parramatta Road, traffic bellowed and hummed like a diesel concerto. He parked the Uda in a 2-hour spot for $18. He wasn't here to cause a scene. He was here because of a letter. Folded in his wallet was a copy, a bank notice that mentioned a trust, a figure, $480,000, and a clause that required his consent. The dead hand of a promise he and his wife had made years ago for Ella's future. Something had gone wrong with that future. He found the hotel at the Rocks where the bridal party was getting ready. The sandstone walls held the chill of morning. When the lift opened, a boy in a tiny suit, ring bearer, 7, freckles like spilt pepper, stared at Albie's hat and smiled. "You're here for Auntie Ella? Uncle Dane says today's when he gets the money after the paper." The boy swung his arms, innocent, sing-song. "He said they need the old bloke to sign or Nan gets moved." Albie felt his hand tremble, then still. He pinched the brim of his hat. "Which paper, mate? The marriage one?" The boy shrugged, then ran down the hall, sneakers whispering on carpet. At the suite door, a makeup artist paused, brush mid-air. Ella stood by the window, veil like a mist around her. She was 30, and the city skyline framed her like a poster. For a moment Albie saw her at 10, knees scabbed, holding a rescued Joey. Then her shoulders stiffened. "You're not welcome here, mate. Go home," she said, with no crack in the veneer. She crossed her arms tight against the silk, a defensive fold that looked like she was holding herself together. He smiled, slow and steady, as if the muscles remembered before he did. "Came to wish you well, love, and to fix something that shouldn't be at your back today." He placed the opal brooch on the dresser. "Your mother wanted you to wear it." Ella's eyes flicked to the brooch, then away. "Leave it. Leave." A woman in a neat navy dress with a pin that read JP poked her head in. "Albert McCrae? I'm Justine, Justice of the Peace. Your signature witnessed here will finalize the release notice for the McCrae Family Trust Addendum. Strictly administrative, I'm told." She held a clipboard, neutral, professional, authority without edge. Albie lifted the letter from his wallet. "Funny, because my copy says any change requires both trustees' consent. That's me and the solicitor we used in Dubbo. Is he here?" Justine frowned, scanning the letter. "This is dated March 10th, 2025, and it refers to a conditional deed." "Where is that deed?" Ella's fiancé, Dane, wandered in with a grin and a cufflink between his teeth. "We've got it handled, Justine. Cheers, Albie, for making the trek. Let's not wreck the vibe." Albie's jaw eased. He didn't push. He looked at Ella and the brooch again, nodded once, and left the room without raising his voice. Engagement aside, gentle and brief, if you've ever felt torn between pride and protection, drop the word opal in the comments. And hey, if the story pulls you in, consider subscribing so you don't miss where this heads. He walked out onto the cobbles, the harbor flashing like a blade. Wind tasted of salt. He needed facts, not feelings. Down the street, a small branch of a regional bank sat wedged between a chemist and a cafe. The manager on duty, a woman in her 50s with reading glasses on a chain, let him in early at 9:58. "I'm here about a trust. McCrae Family Trust," he said, laying the notice down. "My daughter's weddings turned into a paper chase." She scanned the document. "I'm Angela. I can't give specifics without authority, but I can confirm the existence of a conditional transfer scheduled for today at 1500 hours. It requires 2 signatories, both trustees, to move funds to a separate account held by a proprietary limited company, Dane Vale Holdings Proprietary Limited. She looked up. Are you aware of this? Albie exhaled. Not in those words. A barista from the cafe popped in with a tray. Flat white for Ange. Sorry to interrupt. She glanced at the letter, then at Albie. Oh, is that the same Dane who was talking about moving an old lady out of her place? He was in here bragging he'd lever the asset. Once the codger blinked. Sounded gross. Innocent source, careless reveal. No malice, just a mouth running on caffeine. Angela's eyebrows rose. I suggest you get independent legal advice. There's a community legal center 2 blocks up. Look for the green door. He checked his wind-up watch. 10:11. His hand stopped trembling. The thermos lid clicked as he tightened it. The city had a rhythm. He fell into step with it. The legal center smelled like paper and old rain. On the wall, a poster for domestic and family violence services curled at the corners. A young solicitor with sandy hair introduced himself. I'm Tom, admitted last year. How can we help? Albie laid it out. The trust, the notice, the wedding, the name of the company. My late wife and I put money aside for our girl's life. It's not meant to be anyone else's leveraged asset. Tom's tone stayed even. A marriage certificate does not grant authority over trust funds. If there's a conditional deed or a power of attorney being misrepresented, we can put the bank on notice and lodge an urgent caveat over disbursement. But we'll need documentary proof. A volunteer law student stuck her head in. Sorry, phone call from a Mrs. Keating for Mr. McCrae. She says she's your neighbor. Albie took the handset. Narelle Keating, 76, lived up the road at Wongerbin. A widow who crocheted in church and baked Anzac biscuits no one could refuse. Albie, love, she said, voice thin. Some slick suit came round. Says if you sign today, the bank takes my pasture as collateral next month. He left a card. Read the name, Albie said, his fingers whitening around the phone. Dane Vale Holdings, she read. Innocent, anxious, true. Tom's pen stopped. We'll draft the notice now. By noon, the heat had crept along George Street. The bridal car, a 1969 Monero in cream, idled outside the church near the rocks, engine purring like a cat. Inside, sandstone held cool pockets of air. Ella stood beneath a stained glass window, the opal brooch now on her bouquet, despite herself. She had not forgiven him, but she had not flung the past away either. Her hand shook once, then steadied. The celebrant, a woman in her 40s named Priya, ran through final details. Guests are seated, vows printed. If there are any legal impediments, they must be raised before I pronounce you. At the front pew, Dane's mother whispered, after vows, we go straight to Angela. Sign the transfer, while the old bloke's still soft. Then we can push the granny off her patch, sell the security, and clear the loan. She didn't whisper quietly enough. The flower girl, a thoughtful 8-year-old with braids, heard every word while picking petals. She wasn't trying to eavesdrop. She simply caught what adults dropped. She tugged Ella's veil. They want to push a granny, and they said the old man will be soft. Ella's shoulders drew back. The gesture was small but seismic. She looked at Dane. What transfer? He smiled too slow. Just standard stuff, babe. We'll be set. Albie arrived at the church door, hat in both hands. Tom, the solicitor, followed, a folder under his arm. Outside, the city fairies hooted like impatient geese. Inside, the hush went brittle. Priya, neutral and calm, stepped forward. Sir, if you have a legal matter, we can address it before proceedings. Please keep voices low. Tom handed her a letter. Notice of urgent caveat and bank alert. There appears to be a misrepresentation of trustee consent and an attempt to tie a third party's rural property as collateral without clear disclosure. We're not alleging criminal conduct here. We are simply asserting the trust's terms. The church's PA coughed. Dane's cufflink clinked on the floor, a silly, traitorous sound. Albie didn't look at him. He looked at Ella. I drove down because your mum would have wanted me to be here. I'm not here to ruin your day. I'm here to keep what we built for you from being siphoned off. Dane laughed. Too loud. He's making it up. He didn't even get an invite. From the back, Justine the JP raised her hand. I can confirm I was asked to witness a signature this morning. The documentation I saw did not include the conditional deed. I withheld my witness pending clarification. Silence swelled. The flower girl put her small hand in Ella's. Innocent and steady. Mid-story engagement aside. A breath, not breaking immersion. If you're with Ella right now, stick around. The best is yet to come. And if you're new here, hit subscribe so you don't miss how this unravels. Outside the church after the pause, the wedding party spilled into sun. The harbor threw diamonds at the stone. A gull laughed rudely at a dropped canopy. The photographer tried to round them up. Albie stood off to the side, watching the Monero's reflection ripple in a puddle. A police car rolled slowly past, community officers doing a loop. One of them, Sergeant Ng, nodded at Albie's hat. Nice Akubra. You all right, sir? Fine. Just a legal tangle? Albie said. Ng tipped his chin. Lot of that this week. Scams dressed in suits. Keep it civil. Meanwhile, back in Dubbo, Mrs. Keating waited on her veranda, hands curled around a mug stamped with 1967. The local postie, a kid named Jaden with a skateboard strapped to his backpack, read a letter out loud because her reading glasses had snapped that morning. Says here, notice of intended mortgage over rural lot 23 if trust deed variation executed. That's fancy words for, they'll lean on your grass if a paper in Sydney gets signed today. Innocent source, clear as dam water. Jaden filmed a quick clip on his phone, sending it to Albie with the caption, Is this bad? Back in Sydney, Ella found Albie by the railing. The wind licked her veil. Her lower lip trembled, a tell she'd had since childhood. Did you really put money away for me? She asked, not quite looking at him. Your mum did. I just fenced it, he said. We agreed it would be there for your home, your work, your life. Not leverage. Why didn't you tell me? I tried. We both got proud. She nodded once. All right, Dad. Let's go to the bank. Inside the branch, Angela the manager placed 3 documents on the desk. It's 14:07. The scheduled transfer is at 1500 hours. With this caveat in place and absent both trustees' consent, we cannot proceed. If there was any attempt to apply a third party's property as collateral without full informed consent, that would be a separate concern. Dane and his mother stormed in on a hot gust of fury. You can't do this, she hissed. We've booked the reception. We've got deposits. Angela's tone remained even. Banking is not a wedding gift. It is process. Please lower your voice. A boy at the ATM turned his head. Mum. Why's the lady shouting? Innocent, unaffected, the true mirror adults sometimes refuse. Dane reached for Ella's arm. Albie stepped a half step forward. Not aggressive, just presence. His hand didn't shake. Ella pulled her arm back herself. Don't touch me, she said, voice quiet as a whip crack. Tom spoke softly. There's also the matter of Mrs. Narelle Keating's pasture being referenced in preliminary paperwork. She's 76. Angela slid a paper across. I'm raising an internal review and notifying ASIC. That's procedure. The city breathed out with them. The hour moved. Wedding guests drifted to the pub. The Monero idled, then left. The reception band texted, Still on. No one replied. Late afternoon fell like a benediction. They stood by the water. Ella held the opal brooch in her palm, thumb worrying its surface. I can't unknot everything today, she said. But I can choose not to tie new knots. Albie nodded. That'll do. They walked towards the rocks markets, the stalls half shut, the air smelling of lemon myrtle and hot chips. A commotion up ahead. A small crowd, a raised voice, someone crying. An elderly woman, not local, sat on a milk crate, breath shallow. A trio of tourists had jostled her trying to squeeze past. One of them, impatient, knocked her crocheted shawl to the ground. She was no one to them, just a blockage. It happened in seconds and would be forgotten even faster. Before Albie could move, the flower girl from the church darted in, planted herself between the woman and the jostle, and said, loud and clear, "Stop!" She picked up the shawl, wrapped it around the woman's shoulders with care beyond her years, and glared at the tourists until they backed off. A tiny body, a vast line drawn. The crowd shifted, protective now. A stall holder fetched water. Ella crouched, hand on the woman's arm. "You all right, love?" The woman nodded weakly. Ella's hands steadied. No tremor now. A paramedic from a nearby ambulance kiosk arrived. "I'm Jules. She'll be fine, just a wobble. We'll run checks." Neutral authority. Calm anchors holding the edges. Albie watched the child's face, fierce, certain. He saw a future he could help protect. Not with fists but with paper and patience and the choosing of better people. He took the opal brooch from Ella's palm and pinned it to the child's dress for a moment, just to make her smile. Then he returned it to Ella, who finally pinned it to her own heart, fingers sure. The formal wedding would be rescheduled or not. What mattered was that the trust held, the pasture stayed under Mrs. Keating's sky, and a child learned that she could stop a tide by standing in it long enough for adults to come to their senses. As the sun slid behind the bridge, Albie and Ella sat on a low stone wall, legs swinging like they had years ago at the farm dam. He poured the last of the thermos tea. They shared it in paper cups, the steam tremoring in the gold light. In the distance, a ferry's wake wrote brighter water over dark, a line drawn firm and then fading, as all lines do. Final engagement aside, gentle, what would you have done in Ella's place? Tell us your take, and if this story spoke to you, subscribe and stick around for the next one. Another quiet storm with a loud ending.